The reason you still feel stuck isn't because you lack information, but because you've never become the man that God's calling you to become. And that was something I had to face a year ago. I was overweight, struggling spiritually and mentally. I was at the lowest of lows when it came to my physical health, my mental health, my spiritual health. I felt far from God. And in that point, I had to face the realization that either I keep going down the same path or I step into what God was calling me to. I realized that I had to change my identity and not just continue to consume information. And in that moment, when I made that decision, everything changed. I ended up losing 30 pounds, rebuilding my discipline, and most importantly, growing closer to God. I transformed my life physically, mentally, and spiritually. And in this video, I'm gonna break down exactly how I did it and the exact system I implement to help men achieve the same results. So let's get into it.
I'm going to show you exactly how I lost 30 pounds and became a disciplined man of God through the Forge protocol. And before I even tell you my story, I want you to see something because these are real men with real transformations and real breakthrough, right? Not just physically, but mentally and spiritually as well. Guys who struggled with consistency and guys who felt stuck, who kept starting over on Mondays, and now they're actually building discipline, confidence, and living with structure that is unshakable, right? Having momentum within their lives. For example, my guy Nick here lost 29 pounds and rebuilt his entire framework of mind and his body together as one. Guys are hitting things like sets 14,000 a day, right? Guys are seeing their bicep range for the first time. And I want to point you right here where one of my guys was talking about how his morning routine went super well, right? And he just was in the spirit, walking with the Lord and really feeling the benefit of what it was like to prioritize God, right? Spiritually and mentally, and hitting the gym no matter what, showing up as a non-negotiable. And I also want you to understand something that I did not start genetically gifted. Right, this picture was me just a year ago, and I was overweight, tired, undisciplined, held disconnected from God, and I was completely stuck in destructive cycles. I wasn't a naturally fit guy. I wasn't the guy who always had some sort of high confidence or had everything figured out, but I simply got to a point where I was tired of staying the same. And instead of waiting for more motivation, I finally took action. And that's why I know this transformation is possible for you too. This video is specifically for the man who knows deep down that he's called to more, but doesn't feel like he's living at that level right now. So if you're tired of living in the same cycles, you know what to do, but you can't execute it consistently. You struggle with discipline around food and lust and procrastination. You feel spiritually inconsistent and distant from God. You know God has called you to more, but you're not living like it. Also, let me make something clear that this is not for men who are looking for shortcuts. This is not for men who want motivation without actual discipline and taking action. For the men who blame everyone else for their current situation, not for the man who refuses accountability or isn't actually serious about changing his life. Because this program is for men who are finally ready to take ownership of their life. And the real problem really isn't what you think it is. The most overweight men aren't lazy, but they're overwhelmed. Modern fitness buries men in conflicting advice and impossible standards. There is an overwhelming amount of information out there on social media with AI, and you can find anything that your heart desires, but there's too many diets, too many opinions, too many shortcuts, and eventually you stop trusting yourself. Most overweight men aren't lazy, but they're lost in a system that's designed to confuse. Also, the more that you continue to rely on motivation, the harder the journey will become. Because emotion-driven fitness creates cycles of effort and collapse, but it will never be a lifelong transformation. And there's a lack of implementation. Because information without execution is just noise. And just a year ago, this was me. I was 190 pounds, the heaviest I'd ever been in my entire life. And I was out of breath walking up a single flight of stairs. I was insecure in every photo that was taken and honestly just ashamed of my body, ashamed of who I was as a man. And honestly, the worst part wasn't even the physical. I had absolutely no structure. and I was living day by day, guessing what was going to happen next. I felt like I was waking up with absolutely no purpose and just drifting through my life. I was procrastinating consistently and living in cycles of pornography and addiction and not genuinely representing a man of God. Because I wasn't leading myself physically, it started to affect me spiritually as well. I spent less time with God. I felt disconnected from Him and felt like my calling was gone with the wind. And I knew I was called to more, but I simply wasn't living like it. And when I look back at these photos, I know exactly what I was feeling like. I was ashamed of my body and the way it looked. The only time I would ever take my shirt off was inside the locker room. Even when I was flexing after my lifts, I still felt insecure with my shirt off. I was looking in the mirror and honestly ashamed of the man that I had become. Being overweight, having no discipline over my body, I was struggling with staying consistent with what I needed to do. I remember recording this video right here and feeling like I was looking at a different man, a man who was lost, a man who had no purpose. And I remember when I was showing up to the gym or when I would take photos, I started to hide my face. I started to hide my body. I started to hide who I was as a man. And I felt so distant from what I was called to. And then I had a realization that completely changed my life. And I realized that I didn't lack information, I lacked identity. I knew what foods were healthy. I knew that I needed to go work out. I knew that I needed discipline. But information means absolutely nothing without implementation. And my implementation was weak because my identity was weak. The habits that I was struggling with on a day to day basis were forming my identity. And those habits created my physique. And my physique reflected my discipline. And that realization is what convicted me on a deeper level. Because James 1:22 says, "Do not merely listen to the word, but do what it says." We must be doers of the word and apply what God has told us. And everything changed when I started aligning with the man that God called me to be. I started to seek the kingdom first, and every decision was built on a spiritual foundation, serving the Lord with everything I had. I stopped focusing only on the fat loss, but started actually focusing on who God was calling me to be. I started to wake up earlier and plan my days with intention, seeking the kingdom first and having actual structure. I started showing up consistently to the gym, holding myself accountable, and actually taking action, not just sitting in the back seat and hoping that someone else will take the wheel. I started to execute. I stopped consuming all these different diets and all this different information, but I took action. I took the first step. The Bible says the plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I actually had a plan. And the weight loss was only the beginning. I lost 30 pounds. Things started to change slowly, but the weight was coming off. My confidence grew, my discipline grew, and my relationship with God was deepened. The physical transformation happened because the identity transformation happened first. For the first time, I felt like I actually respected myself. I stopped looking at myself as a weak man, where I started becoming dependable and disciplined, purpose driven. And because I was becoming stronger mentally, physically, and spiritually, every area of my life improved. During presentations in college, I talked with a different type of confidence. I walked around with a different type of confidence, and it wasn't from ego, but it was from knowing that I had a purpose. I had a plan that the Lord had for me. I started to take the gym more seriously and realize that this was stewardship. This wasn't just showing up to gain muscle or lose weight. This was actually changing my identity as a man of God. And I simply just had overall more confidence with the way I looked. I wasn't afraid to take my shirt off in pictures anymore, or to flex in the posing room, or to flex in the locker room. I felt confident knowing that I was taking action daily to see results. And because of all of this, even my relationship grew. I attracted an incredible woman because I finally became a man that was capable of leading well, of loving well, and showing up consistently. The habits that I was developing with my own transformation, with my body and my mind, implemented into my relationship and allowed me to be a leader and a man of God who was a man of his word and who took action every single day. And that's why this transformation is bigger than just losing the weight or getting abs, because it changes the way you walk through life and how you walk through life. And after everything I went through, I realized that transformation isn't a random thing. There's a process to it. And that's why I created the fourth protocol, a simple 3-pillar system that's engineered to transform overweight Christian men who want to lose weight, build discipline, and strengthen their relationship with God. Step 1 is God and identity, because transformation starts internally first, building a spiritual foundation and understanding the importance of stewardship. Step 2 is foundation, having structure and habits, your nutrition, accountability, systems, having structure every single day, and not trying to be perfect, but being aligned with the man you want to become. And lastly, step 3 is objectives, having daily standards, being consistent, and moving the needle towards your goal every single day. Because that's what will actually create a lasting transformation. The first step is identity. Because if you keep seeing yourself as the old man you used to be, you'll keep returning to that old man, right? When I started understanding who God called me to be, everything shifted and discipline stopped feeling like a punishment, but it became stewardship. I became devoted to what God was calling me to. And once training can become worship, then your consistency can become an obedience. And instead of continuously reacting emotionally, you can start living with intentionality, right? Focusing on the internal before the external, because the outside and your body, your physique, is a reflection of who you are on the inside as a man of God. As Colossians 3:23 says, whatever you do, work at it with all of your heart. The second step is building your foundation. And this is honestly where most men fail, because they rely on their motivation rather than proven systems, right? Because true freedom isn't the absence of rules, it's the mastery of a system that serves your highest self. And this pillar builds the unshakable foundation for a lasting change. So, macro tracking and calorie awareness, understanding what you're actually consuming, why you need to consume it for performance, for fuel, for recovery, to make sure that you're consuming enough to actually lose the weight or to put on muscle. Daily movement protocol, consistent activity tailored to your body. Having activity every day that fits your schedule and allows you to see progress on a day-to-day basis. A simplified training system, a non-complicated training routine that sits within your schedule and ensures that you are still putting on muscle while losing the fat. Habit and accountability systems, consistent routines and support to prevent drift. Accountability will keep you on the right path and make sure that even when times get hard, you're able to stay consistent and continue to be persistent in your goals. An optimized meal structure, a simple, repeatable plan that removes guesswork. Meals can be one of the hardest, most tedious things, but when you have a simple structure and an easy framework to follow, it becomes a whole lot easier. And consistent execution framework. So moving from intention to tangible action every single day, rather than I just want to lose 30 pounds, it becomes what actions am I going to take on a day-to-day basis to get closer towards that 30-pound loss goal. And the third step is objectives. You see, most men fail because their goals are way too vague. Like, I want to get abs or I want to lose 50 pounds. So instead, we break everything down into clear daily standards, right? So taking simple actions every single day consistently to actually see a real transformation, setting real attainable goals, celebrating small victories to actually fuel that consistency, establishing non-negotiable routines for steady progress, building foundational habits every single day, having momentum, right? Seeing success will breed more success. So building on that momentum and moving the needle forward, eliminating distractions and acting with purpose. And lastly, seeing measurable progress. So tracking your journey through analytics to see how far you've come. And this won't happen overnight, not through motivation, but through consistent obedience and application. So now what's actually inside the Forge Fitness program?
The Forge program combines personalized strategy, dedicated support, and spiritual growth, all powered by advanced tracking to provide a simple, structured, and guided path to transformation. So, when it comes to personalized strategy, having a custom training program that aligns with your schedule, with your body to ensure that you are putting on muscle or maintaining muscle while losing weight, as well as macro targets that are aligned with your calories to ensure that we're in a proper state to lose or maintain that weight, and meal guidance so you're never guessing on what the next meal is for the entire week. Physical execution phases, so not just having a macroscopic but also microscopic goals to ensure we're taking steps every single week, every single day to see progress. And of course, injury prevention is a huge thing. So mobility and recovery systems to ensure that our body is fully being taken care of, not just being built inside the gym, and a complete transformation roadmap. So we can see the entire scope of where our progress needs to go and how we can accomplish that on a day-to-day basis. When it comes to dedicated support, so we run a one-on-one weekly check-in call where we go over goals, how everything's aligning, any adjustments you need to make, and also just a time to get into the word with daily accountability check-ins. So having 24/7 access to my phone so we can communicate, have any questions that you need answering or just want to talk, having that accountability right there, as well as weight progression tracking, having your meal prep reviewed. So submitting photos so we can actually see what your meal prep's looking like, what the calories and macros are looking like, and to make sure everything's aligned properly with your plan, and direct support whenever needed. When it comes to advanced tracking and tools, so a full Notion dashboard where the program will be ran, as well as progress tracking systems. So using analytics to ensure that we're using data to see the progress. Form breakdowns, so you don't have to guess if you're doing the exercise correctly, but actual breakdown of how you're doing the form, as well as some coaching feedback from myself. Calendar structuring to ensure that every day is planned properly to see progress, right? Plans of the diligent lead to abundance. So having an actual plan every single day. Habit tracker systems, taking the initiative to find what our habits are and how we can adjust them, make them better, or take away some that aren't necessary to become that man of God that He's calling us to become. And data driven accountability. Like I said, focusing on the data, the analytics, looking at the numbers, as well as looking at what's actually moving the needle towards our goals. And identity and spiritual growth, one of the biggest things. So ensuring that we are growing as a man of God, right? Growing into our faith. So spiritual growth modules that are going to push you and excel you as a man of God. Bible studies. Once a week, we run a Bible study where we get together as men, as brothers, and we go into the Word. We understand what the Lord's kind of been putting on our heart, a time for sharing of our faith, a time for accountability, and just growing as a brotherhood inside of Forge. Identity guide and winner's mindset. So understanding the importance that it takes our mindset and identity shift to genuinely see transformation, as well as understanding that faith and fitness go hand to hand and they're not separate. So making sure that those two are integrated at all times. Habit building systems, reinforcing those habits, and structure and discipline coaching, ensuring that there is structure and discipline to every habit and every action we take to see the needle move. And this comprehensive ecosystem ensures that every aspect of your transformation is covered from physical to spiritual.
So visually, as you can see, if we start with meals and macro tracking, we have meals broken down by the macros, the calories, the ingredient list that you need to actually make the meal, and the recipe that's included so you have no time to guess and you can just execute simply on how to make those meals. For example, these are some meals that the guys have been running inside the program and some different ideas that are ran through. Right, so having a meal plan that removes the guesswork, knowing what you should be eating every single day, breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack, dessert, and having a plan every day so you can attack diet intentionally and not have to guess anymore. And also when it comes to spiritual growth, look at a lust habit tracker so we can stay on top of the cycle that keeps men stuck, right? So daily accountability when it comes to lust and addiction, right? Implementing this as a sense of accountability and a sense of action towards freedom. Having a Bible reading plan so you don't have to open up the word and guess what you're going to read, but rather having a plan and having structure to what you can read when you get into the word. So along with the Bible reading plan and the lust habit tracker, the most fundamental growth that is key when it comes to seeing change is growth in the Lord and prioritizing your relationship with Christ. So with that being said, the program also includes a numerous amount of Bible studies that we run through every single week where we gather in the Lord's name. We have time for community, time to lift each other up, time to grow as men of God. And every single one of those Bible studies can be found within the program, at least the previous ones that we've done. And also you can take time to look them over yourselves and grow individually and together, as well as numerous in-depth spiritual growth modules, right? So things like lust, how to actually read the Bible, becoming a leader as a man of God, walking by the Spirit, not the flesh, building a routine, having effective time throughout your day so you can step confidently in the things you're doing, right? So this is to help you grow as a man of God. So we're not just seeing growth physically and mentally, but spiritually stepping into what the Lord's calling you to and focusing on the relationship that matters the most. And on the note of accountability, every single week we run a one-on-one check-in call where we go over your goals, we go over the progress that you've made, any setbacks we need to go over, how we can adjust the plan if need be. And we also get into the word, have time for prayer, and let it be a time of worship and genuine conversation to grow as brothers of Christ and to let the Lord be the center of it all. And when it comes to training, having a system that will work for your schedule and your body, right? So we'll be given the exercises, the weight you'll do for those exercises, the sets and reps, RPE, and then also some cues for the form to make sure that everything's being hit properly. And as you can see over here is what the database kind of looks like, with the workouts all being displayed. Green meaning that workout has been hit, blank meaning it has not been hit, as well as having daily accountability when it comes to your morning routine and to-do lists to make sure you're taking actionable steps outside of just physical. Now, when it comes to form breakdowns and physical, as you can see, there's a section for foundational setup and tracking, as well as progression and performance systems, right? So this includes form breakdowns, mobility, to ensure that you're completing every exercise properly, as well as feedback from me on a weekly basis where you're able to record your form and I'll give you some feedback, send you a video talking about what we can improve, what you did well. So that way you're never guessing on if you're performing an exercise correctly. Now, one of the biggest things are the identity systems. So 3 separate modules that go deep into how you can rewire your brain for a real transformation to step in to the man that God's calling you to become. And again, these results are not random. These men didn't just lose weight, but they actually became a man of God, a confident man of God. They rebuilt their discipline, rebuilt their confidence. They broke out of destructive cycles, and they finally started becoming the man that they knew that they were called to be. For example, Michael right here dropped 13 pounds and started to see some definition of his abs. He had a horrible habit of late night snacking and kind of just drifting through the day. But as you can see, spending more time with the Lord and being disciplined enough to get through the morning, having his meal prep ready on a day-to-day basis so he could show up consistently. Nick lost 15 pounds and grew as a confident leader, a man of God, and seeing weight that he hadn't seen in over a year. Mikey lost 8 pounds in just 1 month inside the program and couldn't believe that he was actually that low. And my guy Nicholas lost 29 pounds in 100 days. He rebuilt his discipline with lust and reached weight that he hadn't been since high school. He said he felt great. He felt lighter, his clothes were fitting better, and he felt like he got better strength in the gym, overall building healthier, solid habits. But you also have to ask yourself something honestly. What will happen if nothing changes? Another year will pass by, another year of inconsistency, another year of hiding in the back of photos, another year of feeling uncomfortable in your own body, another year of feeling distant from God and spiritually stagnant, another year of lacking structure, drifting through life, letting the wind take you day by day, another year of not stepping into the calling you know God has placed on your life. Because the cost of staying the same is greater than the discomfort of change. But now imagine the man you can become. A future where your faith, body, and purpose are fully aligned. Feeling physically strong and energized. Having the energy to show up daily. Right? To be physically strong and vibrant. No more hiding in photos, but stepping forward with confidence and discipline. Having unshakable confidence with every room that you step into. Right? Being fully present with your family and your community with conviction, being spiritually grounded and purposeful, walking with a clear purpose day to day, and being rooted and grounded in what God has placed you in, honoring Him with every aspect of your life, and being a man of your word, right? Being disciplined and trustworthy, a man of integrity and having actual impact. That's what happens when faith, discipline, and structure are aligned. So now that you understand exactly how this process works, I have an offer for you. If you're tired of staying stuck in the same destructive cycles every single year, struggling to stay disciplined with food, fitness, and your faith, feeling uncomfortable in your own body, and disconnected from your purpose. And if you're ready to finally take control of your life, you want to build lasting discipline and confidence, and you're ready to finally become the man that God is calling you to be, then book a free strategy call with me below. And now, this is not some high pressure call, but rather an opportunity to break down exactly where you're stuck, what's been holding you back, and what specific steps you need to take to finally transform yourself physically, mentally, and spiritually. Because the truth is, the only thing standing between you and the man you're meant to become is action.